In today's video, I will be showing you how you can create this interaction. So the first thing we're going to do is interacting the tabs. And what that simply means is we'll be able to navigate through these tabs. So we're going to have to see the hover and also the active state. So let's get straight into the first one. So to do this, we already have the design now. So what I'll do is I'm going to bring out one of this. So I'm going to get out the about, bring it out, and then we're going to have the next state for it, which would be the hover state. And then we're also going to have the active state. So all of these we're going to title so active, and for this we're going to say this would be hover state and this would be inactive. All right, so for the hover state, obviously we need to make it different from the inactive state. So what can we do to this? One thing I would like to do is to add a stroke. So I'm going to give it a stroke, but this stroke would be F4 F4 F4. Let me see if that is visible enough. All right, that should do. And then for the active state, we're going to give it we're going to swap the colors. So I'll change the primary to white, and then the background would take up our primary color. So this way the user knows that they've clicked on that particular tab. All right, so with all of this selected, the next thing to do is to put them in a component set. The first step is putting it in a component set. So we're going to click at the top here where it says create component. Click on the drop down and select create component set. Now once we have this, we can title this tab. Now we're going to have to do multiple of this, but I'll show you what we're aiming at. So first step is selecting this. I'm going to hit Shift plus E to select prototype, or you click on prototype, and then I'm going to drag from this to this one, and here I'm going to say while hovering. So while hovering, show me this, and then on click I'm going to drag it again to this one. On click, this is going to be on tap, hover to this. Let's change this to smart animate, and also with the first one we're going to change that to smart animate. Now also on this one, on the hover state, we're going to drag it to the active state, and we're going to say on tap, because while you're hovering it's going to show you this, and then on this you can tap and still get into this. And then if you just come here and tap, then it takes you this to the active state. So we have that settled now. The next thing is to test what we've done. So we're going to grab the inactive state, duplicate it by holding Alt and just dragging it out, or you go to assets, and then from here you can do more. I don't know where it is, so I have a lot of assets here, so that's why I'm doing it from this part. All right, so I'm going to leave it at assets, select this, and then what we're going to do is to test this. So I'm just going to draw a frame around it, just a tiny frame like this, and I would call this tab. All right, let's bump that color down a bit so that we can see what we have here. All right, I'm going to select that, hold Shift, and yeah, basically this is what we have. Now we're selecting this, go to prototype and hit starting flow or start flow, and then we can test this inside of our design. So let's see what this gives us, and then we can proceed to creating for the others. Now we have this here. We can now see when we hover, you may not really see it, so let's change the background to white. So I'm just going to type in FFF into 6, and so we have this. Now we're going to select this and try to do the hover thing. Let's do that again. All right, so you can see it bumping up. You know what, to make it more visible to you guys, I'm going to change the gray to something like black. I'll just change it to pure black so you can see it clearly as we hover on it. Click this again, Shift plus E, and then you can see the hover state. Now this is the hover state, and you can see because of Smart Animate, it gives us this smooth feel. Now we can tap on it and we're going to get the active state. The next step is where we get to add this to our design and see how it works for all the others, because now we would need this to work in a way that when you tap on about, it's active, and then when you tap on pricing, it moves from about to pricing. But this is a very technical one, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab the about. We just grab it. You can duplicate it and bring it into our design. So we'll place it there. It's now a component, so we're going to delete this one, and then we're going to grab this one. All right, this one, we're going to duplicate it 2 times. All right, with that, we can grab the pricing and just basically change the text within. So I'm just going to type in here, help, and I'm going to get rid of this other 2. Now everything is now a component. The next step is where we create that interaction. Let's break the background for this. Let's add a starting flow, and if we try to hover on this, guys, or click on them, you can see that everything is clicking. Everything clicks, and that's not what we want to achieve. All right, so what we want to basically achieve is what I would show you now. So to achieve this, all you need to do is grab all 3 of these. So we're going to grab all 3 of them. All right, duplicate them, bring them out. So we have all 3 of them here. I'll just take them upward a bit, and then we can call this about. And then from about, once the user taps on about, it becomes active. But once the user taps on pricing, pricing becomes active. So we're going to duplicate this, and then one more. For this one, we're going to call this pricing, right? And then the last one, we're going to call it help. Let's say the user was in the home and the user taps on about, it will take them to about. So I'm going to make about an active state. First of all, it's going to be like this when the user gets on the platform. So it's going to be on about. Now, once the user taps on pricing or help, let's say the user taps on pricing, it will take the user to this part. So pricing becomes active. And then once they tap on help, it takes them to help, and help becomes active. Now, to make this work, all you have to do is select all 3 of them, and you guessed right, put it in a component set. So now that we've put all of this in their various in a component, we can name these tabs. All right, and then it's time to put it within our design. So we're going to grab one, just copy it, Ctrl C, come into your design and paste it in the tab. Now for that, I'm going to delete this one, and then I would send the button to the end. All right, and we can play it to see how it shows. So you can see the hover state is working, but the other ones would not work yet. You can see what's happening. So even though I click on it, it's not working. So to fix this, all we have to do is basically think about how this is expected to work in real time. So once a user clicks on pricing, what happens? It's expected to take the user to the pricing page. So we're not going to be working with just one page. So we're going to duplicate this 3 times. Now we have it 3 times, and I'm just going to change the positioning of this element so that you know we're in the different pages. All right, so that works. Now the next thing you need to do is to prototype. So we'll switch to prototype, and then from pricing, you're going to select pricing. So from pricing, what happens? Once the user clicks on pricing, it should navigate them to the pricing page. All right, this is the pricing. and then we need to do the same for help. Once the user clicks on help, it will take them to the help page. So you can also name all of these pages, that's left to you. And then from here, which is the next state, we're going to change it. We're going to change it from here, from about to pricing. So it's on pricing, and then for this one, we're going to change that to help. So that is under the tabs or component property. And then from here, we'll select about. All right. And with our prototype on, we're going to click from here back to this one. And it's on click, smart animate on click. All right. And then for help, from here to this one. And then we can do the same for here. We're going to start with the pricing because it's closer. So I'm going to move that there. And then I'm going to select the about, and we're going to drag our prototype to the about. Now let's see if that works. So we have our design here. We can refresh this by hitting letter arrow, and it will refresh. And then you can see our hover states are still there. And when we click on pricing, you see what happens. It changes. When we click on help, that also takes effect. You can also navigate through all of them, and it's very much seamless. All right. So with that, we're done with the second phase. The last phase is to add the drop down to a hover state. So the drop down only shows when we're hovering on the pricing or on the tabs. To do that, all we need to do is, let's start with the hover state. So to do that, we're going to just duplicate this out. So that is the hover state for the tabs. And then since we already have all of these elements, we're going to grab the first one. We're actually going to grab all the logos. So you grab all the logos, duplicate them, Alt, bring them out, and then just put them in a component set. All right, ensure they have their naming. So I'm just going to title this FIGMA, and this will be Framer, and the last one I'll title it AI. That's Adobe Illustrator. All right, we have that, and what we need to do now is select this. It's going to have, obviously, it's active, not an active state, but a hover state. When you click on it, the card disappears. So all we need now is the inactive and hover state. So this is the hover state. I will duplicate it one more time, just bring it below it. All right, before I do that, let me grab one of the icons. So we're going to grab one of the icons, copy that, bring it into the design and paste that, delete this one, we don't need it anymore, and then we'll put this. Now with this, we're going to create the second state, and we're going to call this one hover, and this other one would be inactive. Right, and I'm going to change the color to white, and that's it. Right, we have the first one. So we need to create the interaction. So we're going to select these two. I'm sure by now you're getting the hang of it. So select the tool, click the drop down, click on create component set, and we can call this list or list item. From this one, which is the inactive state, we're going to prototype it. Would say from here, when a user hovers on it, it shows this. So we're going to change this from on click to while hovering, and that's it. We're done with that one. And to put it in the card, just the way we did it here, we can just grab one of it, copy it, and just paste it in here. All right, move this one downwards. All right, so we have that over here. It's not going to have the stroke for one of them, so we're going to remove that from the inactive state. All right, so we've taken that away. We're going to also get rid of these two, so we'll just move them aside because we'll need their text. All right, and then for this we're going to duplicate it 2 more times. Get rid of this. Remember, we added the icons as a component set. That means we can change them within our design. So we're going to select this one and change that to Framer, and the last one to AI, and we need to do the same for all of this. So I'm going to title this Framer because I don't want this video to be longer than this, and this AI, and we can leave the other ones as the default text. All right, so I'm going to have to delete this too. Now we have this card. All right, and if we click on this, if we hover on this, it's going to hover, it's going to show us the hover state. So to fix this into our design, all we would need now is the first tab. So we're going to grab one of the tab. I'm going to duplicate it, bring it out. All right, so let's assume that is where it's going to be. Select both of them, and then we're going to just basically centralize them. But this is where, like I said, it gets a little tricky. So we'll have to break this variant, so this detach instance, so that it's not a component anymore, but the single guys are component. And then we would be tying this to pricing. So in order for this to work the way we want it to, we would have to add another frame to pricing and another frame to help if we want to add this also to help. So to do that, all we need to do is select this guy, right click and do frame selection. Now it's a frame of its own, and so with that we can paste this guy inside of this guy. I know it's a lot tricky, so but we need to also extend the height, and that is where I said it's a bit tricky. So ensure that these guys are aligned to the top so that they're always at the top, and then extend the height of this guy to be the height of the frame. So we have this way, and then send this downwards, and we're going to select this guy, cut him, Ctrl X or Command X, select this frame and paste him in there, Ctrl V. Now he's within that frame. To be sure, click on clip content and you can see he's inside of that frame. Now that's exactly where we need him to be. Now we can send this upward. This is going to be when you hover on pricing. Now if you're hovering on pricing, the trigger would only be within this frame. So if you want it to touch all of this part, it won't work. All right, it's only going to be within this frame, like I said, within this frame, this vertical frame. So if you hover out, the card will disappear. If you hover within this frame, the card appears, and then you can hover on these other cards. If you want it to hover the entire cards, then you will need to enlarge this. So you basically would just click and drag this way, all right, and then you would centralize, basically just put this at the middle, and then these other guys would be on absolute positioning, and you just enclose them. So to do that is simply by breaking everything. So we're going to select the tab, hit Ctrl Shift and G, and so with that we only have this guy here. We can now select this guy and this guy and bring them closer. All right, and we can adjust them this way. All right, this should work. Select everything and put it into a frame of its own. Frame selection, and we're going to call this tab. We can now extend this other tab. Remember, this other one is for the pricing, so you can see we can change this to pricing, and then the drop down inside of it is there, and then the tab is at the top within this same frame, and these other guys are just on their own. All right, so we're done with the first stage. we need to duplicate it to create the hover state. This one would be empty, obviously. So we're going to duplicate this, and then inside of this one, we'll get rid of this guy. But there's something I love to do. So I would click on tab and then click on clip content, and on this tab, what I would do is I would send it downwards. So you can click on the arrow key. To make it faster, just hold shift and then press down, and it will just run the way it's running in mine. Now what I want to do is create like a jump effect where it would jump out of here and become this. All right, so you're going to see that in a second. Let's take these guys downwards, and then we're going to select this guy and this guy, go up here to the component and choose create component set. And with this, we can select this guy. Remember, we want to select the pricing tab, so we need to look for the pricing tab. This is the pricing tab, not the tab itself, not this one itself, but the one that is carrying everything. So we're going to select it, go to prototype, and then we're going to move that into this other frame and change that from on click to Y hovering. So we need to get rid of these other guys and this other guy as well, and remove the default. So we'll do that again. Select the pricing, move it in here, and change that from on click to Y hovering. All right, with this, whenever you hover on the pricing, it will show this, and then you can go through this, and if you hover out, it will disappear. Now let's do the same. We can't do the same for the help actually, because if you try to do that for the help, the other guy is covering it. You can see its trigger point is covering it, so it won't really work. All right, so we're going to leave the help and we're going to focus on ensuring that this works. So let's test this out and see how it shows. So go to our design. We'll first have to take this into our design actually. So we're going to get rid of this. For now, we'll just delete this. Take this guy, click on Alt and drag it into your frame. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to place it on top of these other guys. So we'll just position him here and just take him upward until he fills up that space. All right, that is it. The other guys, you can even make them invisible. So if I send this to the back, I can select these guys and just come to the opacity here and change that to 0. All right, with that, we can bring back this guy to the top and we have him centered where we want to be. So you only use this for validation because you can't do everything. All right, so take this and let's try to see how this works. All right, so if we try to hover on pricing, you can see what happens. It shows us these other guys, and then we hover on them, it also hovers, it also works. So I hope this video has taught you all you need to learn, and I would see you guys in the next video.